What's a statistically proven fact that nobody wants to hear? Teen pregnancy has been declining since the 70s and IQ is currently at an all-time low. Don't tell the baby boomers that, though. It'll destroy their narrative of this generation being a bunch of sexed up lunatics. While deployed in Afghanistan or Iraq, American female soldiers were more likely to be RA'd by their fellow soldier than attacked by the enemy. That's a really terrible double whammy. The continual reminder that grammar is super important. That the world is a safer place now than in any other time in history. Yesterday I stubbed my toe against a table for the first time in 5 years. So your statement may be false. Want me to call a tow truck? The majority of RS sexual assaults are committed by someone already known to the victim. One of the reasons we need to change the narrative around RE/assault because people still have the image of stranger lurking in a dark alley and often think of the attacker as not like that, because they don't seem like a scary alley dweller. They're someone that has been let into lives and homes. It also causes attackers to not always realize what they've done. The Cosby Show of all places actually addressed this pretty well. You're actually talking about a different world. I know the GIF set you're describing exactly. About one man a year accidentally shoots his dick off. http www.defantacessmag.com/193576/ at least 5 Americans accidentally shot off their penises since 2010/ Dude, it's more than that. My wife works in urology at a trauma hospital and sees a few dick shot cases a year. People carry their gun in their waistband and boom. I feel like there's a horrifying difference between dick shots and dicks shot off, like Op says. More Americans were killed by toddlers than terrorists in 2015. This is a post where my war against children finally starts to pick up some support. Since your username declares your weapon of choice, I have a question. Are you also the guy who farted on that brat at the toy store? I'm very disappointed that more than 5 people were dumb enough to leave a loaded gun in a toddler's reach. You don't even need a safe, just a shelf. I get that kids can be sneaky little chefs, but come on. More things live on your skin than there are humans on planet Earth. This seems to weird a lot of people out, but it doesn't bother me. I just hope my little buddies are healthy and having a good time. Reminds me of that cartoon series about a germ detective, Osmosis Jones. Bacteria in your body outnumber your own cells. You are mostly you by weight, but you are a minority in your own body. In a way, the genetically us part of us exists less as an organism in its own right, and more as a framework designed to support a particular symbiotic community. Grandpa Nurgle blesses all. Papa Nurgle loves you. Nurgle chaos. Must destroy. Heresy. If you put a cow in an airtight container, it would die of methane poisoning before it ran out of oxygen. Why would anyone not want to hear that? Because methane is a greenhouse gas, and it is a depressing fact. 1 in 6 men have experienced abusive sexual experiences before age 18, and this figure is probably on the low end, as males who have such experiences are less likely to disclose them than women are. I was a victim at a very young age. The only 2 people I told were both former girlfriends. It definitely changed how they looked at me, and both relationships didn't last very long after that. Now I keep that schlock down. I've only ever told one person and they looked at me differently too. The person I told was actually my best friend, and she left not long after that. My husband was sexually abused by his uncle when he was a little younger than 7. He's told me in the past that he doesn't remember it at all, then later made vague mentions alluding to the fact that he does remember. He's been suppressing all that trauma for a long time. If the number of medical errors we have in hospitals was the same as pilot errors in airlines, we'd have 267 fully loaded, 366 passenger, Boeing 747s crash every year. That's how many people medical errors kill. What's being done about this? Not as much as you'd think. Doctors are overworked, nurses are overworked, etc. No one has enough sleep. The medical field needs to follow the aviation field and its incredibly good culture of safety. Doctors are overworked, nurses are overworked, etc. No one has enough sleep. Yeah, it's a huge problem. Medical professionals are basically expected not to have basic human needs and problems, and to do Herculean amounts of work, just as a matter of course. That's going to cause mistakes eventually. Guaranteed. I mean, The airplane analogy doesn't work that well, because you can't translate their practices to medicine. If you want to reduce hours, you have an increase in handoffs/shift changes, which is where the largest number of errors occur. Plus, a pilot can just not fly a plane. It's inconvenient, but no one's gonna die because a flight was delayed a day and they can't get a pilot in. Not having a surgeon for a day will literally cause people to die. It needs a serious overhaul, but there are a lot of catch-22s involved. 60-70% of all elderly couples in the United States still engage in oral sex. There is also a statistically significant correlation between the release/availability of erectile dysfunction medication and a rise in STD transmission between senior citizens. Or, as my grandfather so uncomfortably put it, I've never been so popular in my life, boy. Yeah, I've read that STD outbreaks in nursing homes is a big deal now. Can confirm. My mother works with the elderly. They usually have a safe sex program once or twice a year because old people figure since they can't get pregnant, why use condoms? AWW. Citation needed. Sure. Just gonna Google elderly oral sex. There's a 100% chance at least one of these posts will be submitted to Till by tomorrow. Chicken Webster. 100% chance this will turn into a BuzzFeed article by the end of the week. The bees are dying. I have looked way too far into this over the past 5 years and stopped because it was making me go nuts. There is a lot of evidence for declining bee pop, and also a lot saying it is staying the same/on the rise. Regardless of what you read, more bees is a good thing, so go put a bee house in your garden, or if you find ground bees then leave them alone. Leave them be. Maybe plant some nice bushes that have flowers bees in your area, like, because yes, apiary is damn hard work and can cost a bit, but little things can help bees out. Also stop using nasty pesticides. Buy some ladybugs to eat those green fly. My briefcase full of bees ought to put a stop to that. Hey, that's my line. There is a 100% chance some stupid website will cherry pick entries from this post for their content. That we are living in the most peaceful time ever. Also, world hunger is lowest ever. More people die of overeating, heart disease, diabetes, etc. than hunger. We should have 5K runs to promote 5K runs. If you're in a room full of people with no windows open, that head itchy feeling you get is oxygen deprivation. If oxygen levels drop by 2% total volume of the room, it'll make you feel groggy, but nobody wants to hear that. It's just stuffy in here, yeah. That's what causes the stuffiness. Actually, it's not oxygen deprivation, but CO2 build-up. If O2 levels were down 2%, CO2 would be up by 2% and everyone in the room is dead, having a hard time breathing. So unhealthy air quality is reached a lot earlier than that, at 0.2 to 0.3%. Source: worked on air quality sensor design. Yes, heightened CO2 will make you groggy. International Building Code, or its predecessor, has been addressing ventilation for more 50 years. If you feel sleepy in class, it's because you're bored, not because of a lack of ventilation. That it's much easier to find a statistical correlation than it is to prove a statistical causation. And to indicate this, here is a website that matches up random things that correlate with each other. My favorite was the second, correlating between drownings in the US and movies Nick Cage was in. Holy sh! Till hundreds of people die every year from getting tangled in their bed sheets. Crime rates in the United States have steadily decreased since the 1990s, yet the media and government portray a much more pessimistic narrative. That's actually really impressive. Murder and robbery rates halved between 1993 and 2012 according to this chart. Any idea why? I haven't got a link, but I was reading an article ages ago about this, and it showed that between 91 and 09 gun crime went down but the news coverage actually went up by something like 700%. Well, I can offer two theories and a fact. Roe vs. Wade started in the 70s so unwanted kids wouldn't grow up in a terrible household. Lead poisoning has been shown to increase violent tendencies and lower IQ. Lead levels have been falling. The early 90s were in the crack epidemic. If you look at graphs, there is a spike in the late 80s, early 90s. Gun violence is down 49% from 1993. But fear of crime is up. It was interesting in the thread asking people to compare the civil unrest in the US to that in the 60s and 70s, and seeing so many people say that was worse. But if you watch the news as someone who wasn't alive then, They never make it seem that way. Welcome to the entertainment industry controlling your news media. The days of level-headed honest reporting are long dead now. I told this to someone on FB the other day. They were flipping their lid because people are paying more attention to Pokemon and Geo than to social justice when crime rate is going up at an alarming rate. They did not respond well to me trying to ease their worries. I've had friends posting on Facebook morning that people are so caught up in Pokemon Go that they aren't paying attention to everything happening right now. And I really don't get that attitude. Point why can I not be excited about a fun game and care about other things? Can humans not care about more than one thing at a time? I told a few people about it and they flipped on me and claimed that they were scared every day to leave their house. When I gave them statistics that show our world has never been safer, I was called an a-hole, then promptly blocked because obviously I was being insensitive to people who are hurting. Effing hate Facebook and people who think making people live in perpetual fear is somehow a good thing. But I'm the a-hole when I try to calm them down. I don't understand people anymore. It's almost as if they want people to be afraid so that they'll watch more news. So they become more afraid. So they watch more news. So they become more afraid. So that they watch more news. So they become more afraid. So that they watch more news. So they become more afraid. So that driving/riding in a car is way more dangerous than flying, yet more people are scared to get on planes than cars. To be fair, my fear of planes stems from my anxiety from not being in control. I have a less intense reaction when I'm not the person driving, and my fear of heights, and with everything in the media, it just escalates everything. That 61% of US gun deaths are suicides. That 22 US veterans commit suicide every day. Basically, we have a mental health crisis in this country. Link opens a PDF, and it doesn't seem that anyone is willing to seriously address it. In the US Army, you're more likely to commit suicide than be killed by the enemy. Also, car accidents and industrial accidents. Even during the war, an organization of 1.5 million averaged just under 700 dead per year in both wars combined. That speaks less to a suicide problem and more to a low casualty rate. As a European/British tourist to the USA, I'm often shocked by how mental health is neglected in the urban areas. The majority of homeless people I've come across aren't just sad stories of unemployment, but very sad stories of mental health. It started with state mental hospitals that warehoused the mentally ill. The hospitals got expensive, so the patients were deinstitutionalized, with little provision for their care. Now they accumulate on the streets and in prisons. While they seem like a nuisance, they are actually more likely to be the victims of crime than the perpetrators. I've heard plenty of people acknowledge the mental health crisis. I've never heard proposed solutions. The United States of America imprisons a larger percentage of its population than any other country, except Seychelles, then profits from their incarceration. https://wiki/list_of_countries_by_incarceration_8. It's my favorite tidbit of info about the prison system. Anytime someone brings up courts or jail or crime, China has a population 4 times larger than the US. The US has a prison population 4 times larger than China's. If you are white, the most likely person to murder you is a white person known to you. If you are black, the most likely person to murder you is a black person known to you. If you are Hispanic, the most likely person to murder you is a Hispanic person known to you. Stop worrying about what those people are doing or scheming to do to you, and worry about your own friends and family. Asians remain a mystery. 9/10, possibly more, of child abductions, arrest and/or abuse are committed by a family member or close family friend. This means that stranger danger is the least of your worries. I see this so often, and it makes no sense. Insecure parents are willing to limit their child's activities or independence to, say, disallow them walk home from school on their own, or go to the shop on their own, but yet have no problem letting them over to their relatives or friends' houses. It makes no sense. The world is not as mean as people think it is, and the overwhelming majority of people are good. I think there was a South Park episode on this subject. The logical conclusion was for every parent to abandon their children. Yes, but as we saw, it clearly exposes them to the threat of joining the Mongolian Empire. There's obviously more to the story than this, but surely part of the reason for this statistic is precisely because parents are more careful with strangers than with friends and family. Could go either way, or even be neither. Classic correlation/causation problem. In Europe and in the US, an individual's likelihood of being hurt or killed by a terrorist is negligible. In college, a professor made everyone in the class go home and look up how many people in the US died from terror attacks between 2002 and 2016, and amount of cancer deaths in the same period. We also had to look at how much money our government spends on preventing each of those things, and recommend what we should be spending on each. Based on that info, it was a really thought-provoking assignment. 1. This is not touted as a designed experiment for a study. It's just supposed to make you think about what we hear the most news about vs what we are actually likely to die from. 2. The 9/11 attack was not included because it is a statistical outlier and skews the results of how many Americans a year normally die in terror attacks. When it is included, however, many more Americans still die of cancer. So I don't think it matters that much whether or not it is included for the point being made. I really like that method because I feel like it impacts people and their ideas much more than listening someone tell them the boring facts straight. Making a realization yourself really gets you thinking about things. Organically and conventionally produced foodstuffs are not significantly different in their nutrient content. Also, GMO is such a broad term. Every grain we have in the US has been genetically modified in one way or another. To add on, pretty much every domesticated organism has been the subject of genetic modification from humans. It's just that up until a few decades ago, we had to rely on the less precise methods of making the organism reproduce until we got a specimen with what we were looking for specifically. I thought everyone buys them for their lack of pesticides. Organic still uses pesticides. Just non-synthetic must be used. Anecdotal. Men make up over 75% of all suicide victims. 3.5x women. Men also compose over 93% of US inmates. If you're meeting Mickey Mouse at Disney World, there's a 98% chance there's a girl inside. This is an interesting fact. Don't see how nobody wants to hear this. If anything, I'm glad to hear that the Mickey Mouse that grabbed my butt was probably a girl. Okay, point, I'll bite. Why? Several reasons, but the most obvious is Mickey's height. There are simply more females that are 5 feet and under. Each costume has a specific height range the performer needs to be in order to fill the costume. Mickey also has a much slender frame. Boys generally occupy the larger costumes, starting with Pluto. It's true that there are male performers that are short enough to be Mickey and Minnie for that matter, but they are rare at the very least. The same is true for the taller characters. For example, the Queen of Hearts is almost always performed by a man. Source: worked in the character department at Walt Disney World for 26 years. Mickey Mouse tends to abduct and eat young women. It is kind of a national open secret that no one wants to talk about. That most people don't understand statistics. Black police officers are twice as likely to shoot black people unjustly than white officers. Jews make up 2% of the American population. Jews make up 48% of the billionaires in America. Fat people die earlier than average people due to diabetes and other complications. Like I already didn't know my life is short. Nice job posting this twice, ya cheese stick. Careful with your words. You're making him hungry. This is a question I ask my kids. Teens. How many people have you met that were over 80? Now, how many of them were fat? HIV is not transmitted well via oral or vaginal sex, but it is transmitted very well via anal sex. The odds of catching HIV from receptive anal sex are about 100x higher than the odds of catching it from oral sex, and about 30x higher than from penis vaginal sex. People don't want to talk about it though, and everyone thinks all sex acts are the same, because nobody wants to target gay people. I don't see why being honest about relative transmission rates would constitute targeting gay people. It's not like straight people never engage in oral, nor do gay people practice anal to the exclusion of all other types. It's already commonly stated that gay men are at higher risk for HIV transmission because of the relative prevalence of anal among that demographic. But this is no more targeting of them than it would be targeting black people to say that they are at higher risk for sickle cell anemia, which they are. It's just a medical fact. It doesn't target anyone. Feel free to talk about it. The hiring rate for women in STEM fields, when adjusted for education, experience, etc., is 2x that of males right now. Good diet and exercise will make you lose weight. This is false. All you need to do is to buy the wraps from your friend off Facebook and do a single day of a juice cleanse. Problem solved. Don't forget your fat blockers. Also, you have to do it for more than 2 months or so. You'll notice a difference long before 2 months has passed. If you eat less than you consume /burn /need /use. Diet is the main one. You don't need to do a lot of exercise. Maybe a daily jog. But diet is huge, and it's the hardest part. Worldwide obesity has more than doubled since 1980. In 2014, more than 1.9 billion adults, 18 years and older, were overweight. Of these, over 600 million were obese. 39% of adults aged 18 years and over were overweight in 2014, and 13% were obese. Most of the world's population live in countries where overweight and obesity kills more people than underweight. 41 million children under the age of 5 were overweight or obese in 2014. Obesity is preventable. There are 46 million Sparkslift subscribers, of which 62% are male. 39% of Sparkslift subscribers are under 18 years old. Running the numbers, that means that a minimum of 11,122,801 people, or 0.15% of the world population, has FEDOPS mom. In Africa, girls are more likely to be RED than receive formal education. Where in Africa? Or is this a bizarre continent-wide statistic? Liberia. He's a weirdo assuming it goes for all of Africa. Probably. In the Northern Territory of Australia, Aboriginal minors are more likely to be in jail than in school. In Africa, that's a bit general. Turkish women aged 15 to 44 are more likely to die at the hands of a violent partner than by cancer and road traffic accidents. Pokemon Go is now more popular than any Pokemon game ever released on any Nintendo platform, and that's while being officially available currently in just 3 countries on this planet. Of course it is. It's free. The average person has less than 2 arms. That women are more likely to commit physical domestic violence against their partners than men are. Almost 24% of all relationships had some violence, and half, 49.7% of those were reciprocally violent. In non-reciprocally violent relationships, women were the perpetrators in more than 70% of the cases. Reciprocity was associated with more frequent violence among women. Adjusted odds ratio, AOR right square bracket, 2.3. 95% confidence interval, CI right square bracket, 1.9, 2.8, but not men. AOR equals 1.26. 95% CI equals 0.9, 1.7.